When the words, the evil empire, are spoken, I often wonder what transpires in the minds of folks. For some, especially if it's a Red Sox fan, it might conjure up the images of the New York Yankees. For Toronto Blue Jays fans, it might conjure up the images of the Los Angeles Dodgers. And for others, perhaps, images of the Star Wars trilogy. Today, I would like to conjure up images of Star Wars. The evil empire was the Galactic Empire versus the Rebel Alliance. The Galactic Empire was a tyrannical, oppressive force led by the Emperor Palpatine, which replaced the Galactic Republic to seize control of the galaxy through military might and fear. The Rebel Alliance was a coalition of planets, species, and individuals who united to oppose the Empire and restore freedom to the galaxy. The key figures included Princess Leia, Organa, Luke Skywalker, Han Solo, the Jedi Obi-Wan Kenobi, and of course, the Master Jedi of the Force, Yoda. The recurring theme in each of the episodes was good versus evil. The Rebel Alliance became synonymous with the Force, while the Galactic Empire became synonymous with the dark side. The dark side made attempts to lure the Jedi to the dark side of the Force. If not for the Jedi Obi-Wan Kenobi and Master Jedi Yoda, the dark side may have prevailed. Now, how does Star Wars relate to the solemnity we celebrate today? Let's investigate the origin of today's celebration of Christ the King. Pope Pius XI instituted this feast in 1925 with his encyclical letter, Quas Primas, in the first, to respond to growing secularism and atheism. He recognized that attempting to thrust Jesus Christ and his holy law out of public life would result in continuing discord among the peoples and the nations. This solemnity reminds us that while governments come and go, Christ reigns as King forever. During the early 20th century in Mexico, Russia, and some parts of Europe, militantly secularistic regimes threatened not just the Catholic Church, but faithful and civilization itself. Pope Pius XI's encyclical gave Catholics hope. While governments around them crumbled, the assurance that Christ the King shall reign forever. As this quote from that encyclical letter says, Jesus Christ is very truth, and it's from him that truth must be obediently received by all mankind. Christ's kingship is rooted in the church's teaching on the incarnation. Jesus is fully God and fully man. He is both the divine Lord and the man who suffered and died on the cross. One person of the Trinity unites himself to human nature and reigns over all creation as the incarnate Son of God. From this it follows not only that Christ is to be adored by angels and men, but that to him, as man, angels and men are subject and must recognize his empire by reason of the hypostatic union, Christ's power over all creatures. The church calls us to acknowledge Christ's kingship with our whole lives. He must reign in our minds, which should assent with perfect submission and firm belief to be revealed truths and to the doctrines of Christ. He must reign in our wills, which should obey the laws and precepts of God. He must reign in our hearts, which should spur natural desires and love of God above all things and cleave to him alone. He must reign in our bodies and in our members, which should serve as the instruments for the interior sanctification of our souls, or to use the words of the Apostle Paul, as instruments of justice unto God. With these few words from Pope Pius XI's cyclical letter, a reasonable conclusion can be drawn that the same entities of good versus evil existed in real life as it did in the fictional movie Star Wars. For Christians, when our faith is repeatedly marginalized in public, we can fall into the habit of compartmentalizing our lives. We love Jesus in our private lives, but we shrink from acknowledging the kingship of Christ in social life. When we celebrate the solemnity of Christ the King, we declare to the world and remind ourselves that Jesus is the head of the church and of the entire universe. Today, religious freedom for many people means that we can believe whatever we want in private, but when we enter the public square or the marketplace, we may not speak of anything that relates to our faith. However, the church acknowledges the reign of Christ, not only privately, but publicly. Today's reading of the Gospel of Luke focuses on Calvary and the cross. It also displays the compassion that Jesus offered unto his last breath. Amen, I say to you, today you'll be with me in paradise. The cross is an odd place for a king. It is through the victory of the cross, however, that good triumphs over evil. With the celebration of the solemnity of Jesus Christ, the King of the universe, the liturgical year will begin a transition from an ending to a beginning. This last liturgical year was somewhat lacking. If this liturgical year was somewhat lacking in living each of our day with Christ as our King, do not worry. There's hope. It's called Advent. Next Sunday, the Advent season will offer each of us the ample opportunity to prepare once again to celebrate the miracle of the Incarnation, Emmanuel, God is with us. In other words, to allow the Word to be made flesh in each of our lives. It is a wonderful journey. As Master Jedi Yoda once said, do or do not. There is no try. The Lord be with you.